This is a buoyant and happy morning, and I will return us there in a little while. But I'm going to talk also about where we are right now, which is a difficult place. When we started Third Act 3 years ago, we thought that climate and democracy were uniquely under threat, but I don't think we could have predicted quite what we're seeing now. Watching people snatched off the streets in America because they've written an op-ed that someone in power doesn't like. Having the Smithsonian attacked from the White House yesterday for, quote, improper ideology, unquote. That is a different America than the one I've spent my life in. It's always had flaws and imperfections and problems, but now they are out front in a way that we haven't seen before, and standing up to that is absolutely crucial. I feel a little guilty not being outside my Tesla dealership this Saturday, but I know there are lots of people who are, and I know that there will be lots and lots of people out for this big wave of demonstrations. If you're at all wondering where to go, check out the Third Act website. Places will be nearby. It's also an incredibly hard stretch for the climate of this Earth. When I wrote the first book about all of this back in 1989, I think 2023 and 2024 were the years that I was kind of imagining. They have been the hottest years we've ever recorded on this planet, but those records only go back a couple of hundred years. The scientists are good at building proxies from tree rings and glacial sediments and things. They're quite confident that the last 2 years are the hottest in at least the last 125,000 years on this planet. Obviously, this is producing a series of grim horrors. Sometimes, to me, they feel deeply personal. The house of my first memories in Altadena burned down on day 2 of those fires. My hometown in Vermont's been cut off for big stretches of each of the last 2 summers because the floods have taken out the roads in and out of town. But I know that it's far, far worse in other places with fewer cameras and fewer dollars. And I also know that the deepest danger comes not from these sporadic, violent outbreaks, but from the steady, daily grind of higher temperature, increased drought and desertification, flooding, sea level rise, melt of ice, all the things that are in real time transforming this incredibly beautiful world in incredibly ugly ways. So, it is possible to be dark right now, inappropriate, but only for a moment. I have a secret to share with you. It's not exactly a secret. We've all known about it. We've talked about it on this stage at Bioneers every year that Bioneers has been here. And that secret is this thing we have called for decades, alternative energy. Power from the sun and from the wind, catching the rays of the sun on photovoltaic panels and turning them into electricity, taking advantage of the fact that the sun differentially heats the earth, creating the winds that turn those majestic turbines. The secret's not the existence of that stuff. The secret is the fact that over the last decade or so, the price of it has fallen about 90%. And that sometime 3 or 4 years ago, we went past a line, an invisible line, where it became cheaper than setting stuff on fire to produce energy. And so the point is, this is not alternative energy anymore, okay? We're used, even those of us who like it, we are used to thinking about it kind of as the Whole Foods of energy, okay? Nice, but a little pricey. It is the Costco of energy, all right? It is cheap, available in bulk, on the shelf. And in the places where we have begun to put it fully to use, we are now seeing remarkable things happening. Two quick stories, one of them from here in California. California has not done everything right, and indeed in the last year, the governor's done a number of things wrong about renewable energy. But there was enough momentum over the last decade to build a lot of solar panels and a lot of wind turbines. And last year, they reached some kind of tipping point. Beginning in about March, most days in California, more than 100% of the state's electricity was provided by renewable resources for large parts of the day. When the sun went down at night last year, it was most often batteries that had been soaking up excess sunshine all day that were providing the power. Nobody's really talked about it, but California last year, 2024, used 25% less natural gas to produce electricity than it had in 2023, okay? In 40 years of working on the climate crisis, that is the most encouraging statistic that I have heard. In Pakistan last year, without any government leadership, people just started putting up solar panels because they're right next to China, and there were a lot of them available for cheap. In the course of the last year, Pakistanis have put up roughly the equivalent of 50% of their national electric grid in solar panels. What's happening? Those of you who've traveled in rural Asia know that the soundtrack of much of that part of the world is the diesel generators powering the irrigation wells that draw enough water to irrigate crops. That takes a lot of diesel, which is expensive, so farmers were the first people buying up these solar panels. They often lacked the funds to build the steel supports to put them up, so they just laid them on the ground, pointed at the sky. Pakistanis used 35% less diesel last year than the year before, okay? This is not perfect. There's no free lunch. You have to mine stuff to make this happen. We should do it carefully as we possibly can, but you have to mine so much less. The Rocky Mountain Institute last year said that all the minerals we need to build all the batteries that it would take to run the world by an energy transition by 2050 would require less mining than the amount of coal we mined last year, okay? And if you think about it for a minute, it makes sense. When you mine some lithium or something, you put it in a battery and there it stays for a quarter century doing its job. When you mine coal, you set it on fire and you have to go mine some more tomorrow. We are past the point where we need to set things on fire. We could rely instead on the fact that the good Lord hung a large ball of burning gas 93 million miles up, and we know how to use it. But you know who else knows this secret? The fossil fuel industry knows this secret. And that's why they are running scared. That's why they put $455 million into the last election cycle. That's why they are so dominant in this current administration. That's why they are shutting down the EPA even as we speak. Because they understand, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. It used 25% less natural gas last year. If that gets out of hand, they are out of luck, all right? Now, they can't put this off forever. Eventually, the economics of it will demand work, but they can put it off long enough to wreck the planet. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has told us that we have to cut emissions in half by 2030 to have some hope of staying on anything like the pathway we set out in Paris just 9 years ago. 2030, by my watch, is 4 years and 8 months away, all right? So not a lot of time. We need to figure out how to make this happen faster, how to force the spring, as it were, how to catalyze this reaction. And that's what I want to talk about really with you today, because we need your help. Along with playing defense against all the bad things that are happening in Washington, we are gearing up to play some offense. And we're going to do it September 20th and 21st. And we're going to call this not Earth Day, but Sunday. That's the fall equinox. And it's going to be a day to try and drive home the idea that this is not alternative energy anymore, that this is the common sense, indeed beautiful way to do what we need now desperately to do. It's happening fast, but not fast enough. We need it to go something like 50% faster than it's going now, which is hard but not impossible. We know it's not impossible because we've seen this kind of catalyzing force before. These are pictures from Earth Day in 1970, okay? When 20 million Americans, then 10% of the American population, took to the streets in the largest demonstrations in American history. I have no doubt that there are people in this auditorium who were in the streets that day. And what do you know? Within 18 months, a corrupt Republican administration had given us the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Environmental Protection Agency, because they had no choice, because people were demanding it. So, here's the logo. It's half a sun, because we're halfway there, okay? And we need you to complete the rest of that. This is your first task before you do anything else, before you figure out what kind of event you're going to stage on that weekend of the fall equinox or anything else. We need you just to do the work of drawing for us one of those gorgeous, gorgeous suns. If you go to sunday.earth, which is the website, and I hope you'll do it this afternoon, you'll be able to do it easily from your phone. We've got a tool to make it happen, and we need, as we launch this thing publicly, we haven't quite done it yet. I probably really shouldn't be telling you about it, but I am. It would help enormously to have 10,000 of these drawings to launch with, okay? We're going to be doing lots of things that day. There will be parades of e-bikes and e-buses, and there'll be lots of places where people are cutting the ribbons on new solar farms, and there will be people opening their homes to show their heat pumps or their solar arrays to their neighbors to demystify this. There will be guerrilla actions of a sort. We've been working with our friends at Protect Our Winters, who are some of the best rock climbers in the world, and they're quite up to the task of some guerrilla installations of solar panels on buildings around this country, you know. There'll be beautiful, there'll be lots of people out in the solar farms doing things like planting the pollinator-friendly plants that can line these rows of solar panels and turn them into ways that we solve two crises at once. There'll also be a lot of music and art going on that day. And that's because what we're talking about here is not just, it's not at all really a techno fix to deal with the climate crisis. It's the only way that we have in scale to deal with the climate crisis, I think. But that's not all it is. It's not just about a way to save the 9 million humans who die on this planet each year, 1 death in 5, from breathing the combustion byproducts of fossil fuel. It's not just about cutting off the supply of money to the Koch brothers or Vladimir Putin or the King of Saudi Arabia or all the other oil and gas barons around the planet who have used their winnings to degrade democracies everywhere. It's about all those things, but it's also about a kind of beautiful liberation. The sun already gives us every day light and warmth and photosynthesis. And now it's willing to provide all the power that we need to run our lives. The power for perfectly legitimate and important human tasks, hot showers and cold beer and everything else that we need in order to get ourselves through. But it provides us this power locally. Because every place on the planet gets sun and gets wind. Most places don't have coal or gas or oil, but the sun rises or the wind blows everywhere. And now that we know how to use batteries to store that power when the sun goes down or the wind drops, it's possible for every place on this earth to be able to take charge of its own destiny. This is power that can't be hoarded. It can't be held in reserves. Nobody is going to fight a war over the sunshine, okay? And that is a possibility for a remarkable shift in who we are and where we live. That image of the sun, of half a sun, came to us in a way last year, a difficult year, not as difficult as this one, but not much fun last year. But the day, at least in our part of the world, that everybody came together for a day was the day that the eclipse came across our neck of the woods. And everybody, where we were, stopped all day. It was a holiday. And for once we took note of the most significant object in our universe, that the one that we normally can't really look at. And that day we could, and now we have to look at it again. And we need that to power us in the same way that that first Earth Day was powered by a lot of things, by the oil spill in Santa Barbara, by Rachel Carson's great book, by the Cuyahoga River catching on fire, but above all powered by those photographs that came back from Apollo 8 2 years before, the first vision that the world had ever gotten of its self, you know. And that Apollo mission was the last, if you think about it, sort of group project in a way that we engaged in this country. And it brought people together in lots of ways. Our job now is not to land 2 people on the moon. It is to bring our local star down to Earth in order to let this gorgeous planet keep on living. We know how to do this. We know how to do this, but we have to make it happen, and we have just the shortest bit of time to do that. That's why we're counting on all of you in September to show up with love and joy and beauty in your hearts and minds and make the stand that we desperately need. Sunday.Earth. Thank you all so much.